The observation deck of the stellar crest hummed with the usual sounds of deep space travel, the soft whir of life support systems, the distant throb of engines pushing the vessel through the void between stars. But inside the communal habitat module, chaos had erupted. Ren and Kova, two young Velkari cubs barely past their third molt, were locked in savage combat. Their fur bristled electric blue with rage. Razor-sharp claws extended, teeth bared in primal fury. The Velkari were apex predators from a death world where only the strongest survived to adulthood. Their instincts were honed by millions of years of blood and violence. The other species aboard the ship had learned to give the Velkari wide berth. Even adult Velkari were dangerous when provoked. Their predatory reflexes, faster than most sentient beings could track. But cubs were worse, unpredictable, ruled entirely by instinct, their higher reasoning not yet fully developed. Ren lunged forward with a bone-chilling snarl, his claws aimed at Kova's throat. The female cub twisted aside, her own claws raking across Ren's shoulder, drawing first blood. The metallic scent filled the air, triggering an even deeper level of their hunting programming. This was no longer play fighting. This was a dominance battle that could end in death. The Velkari adults in the nearby quarters had already been alerted, but they were 3 corridors away. By the time they arrived, one cub might already be dead. The other species present a Thexian engineer, 2 Kormali merchants, and a Zenthi diplomat pressed themselves against the walls, knowing better than to intervene. Attempting to separate fighting Velkari cubs was suicide. Their combat instincts would simply redirect toward any threat, and they would tear apart anyone foolish enough to step between them. But there was one human in the room. Ayla Trent stood near the viewport, her short frame dwarfed by nearly every other species present. Humans were considered weak by galactic standards: no natural armor, no venomous fangs, no energy projection abilities. They hailed from a garden world with moderate gravity and temperate weather. By all accounts, they should have been prey species, not predators. Yet something about humans unsettled the galaxy. Ayla watched the cubs circle each other, blood now dripping from multiple wounds. Ren's eyes had glazed over with pure predatory focus. Kova's haunches tensed for another lethal pounce. In seconds, one would strike a killing blow. Ayla didn't run. She didn't call for help. She didn't even raise her voice to a shout. She simply looked at both cubs, made direct eye contact with each in turn, and spoke a single word with absolute authority. Enough. The effect was instantaneous and inexplicable. Both cubs froze mid-strike. Ren's claws hung in the air, millimeters from Kova's exposed throat. Kova's powerful legs, coiled to launch her at Ren's vulnerable belly, suddenly went rigid. Their fur, which had been standing on end in aggressive display, began to flatten. Their pupils, dilated with killing focus, contracted to normal size, and then both cubs sat down. They simply sat, like obedient, domesticated animals, their heads slightly lowered, avoiding Ayla's gaze. The bloodlust that had consumed them moments before evaporated as if it had never existed. The Thexian engineer's mandibles clicked in disbelief. The Kormali merchants exchanged bewildered glances through their multiple eyes. Even the usually stoic Zenthi diplomat's crystalline face flickered with confusion. Ayla walked calmly between the 2 cubs, crouching down to examine their wounds. Neither moved, neither even flinched. She tutted softly, the way one might scold a misbehaving pet, and retrieved a medical kit from the nearby storage locker. "You 2 are going to give your parents cardiac failure," she murmured, cleaning Kova's wounds first, then Ren's. The cubs remained perfectly still, occasionally glancing at her face with something that looked disturbingly like shame. When the Velkari adults finally arrived, bursting through the door with their own claws extended and ready for battle, they stopped short at the scene before them. Their cubs sat docile and calm, wounds being tended by the small human female who hummed an old earth melody as she worked. What did you do?" The elder Velkari, matriarch Senna, demanded. Her voice carried both awe and suspicion. Ayla glanced up, dabbing antiseptic on Ren's shoulder. "They were fighting. I told them to stop." "You told them to?" Senna's translator struggled with the concept. "Cubs in bloodlust don't stop. It's biologically impossible." Their neural pathways override all external stimuli, except, she stopped, her eyes widening in realization, except pack dominance signals. Ayla finished quietly, securing a bandage around Kova's foreleg. Yeah, I know. The room fell silent, except for the ambient sounds of the ship. Every being present understood the implication. The Velkari were pack hunters, but only alpha predators could issue commands that would override a cub's combat instincts, and only if that alpha had proven themselves superior in every way that mattered to a predator species. But Ayla was human. She had no claws, no fangs, no enhanced strength. She shouldn't register as a threat at all, much less as an alpha, unless, the Zenthi diplomat's voice cut through the silence, each word carefully measured. We've been studying humans for 3 cycles now, trying to understand why apex predators from death worlds instinctively defer to them. We hypothesized it was pheromones, or perhaps subsonic vocalization. Ayla stood, packing away the medical supplies. Both cubs remained seated, watching her with alert but calm eyes. It's neither, Senna said slowly, her predator's gaze fixed on the small human. It's something far more primitive. Something that exists beneath conscious thought. The Kormali merchant, unable to contain his curiosity, spoke up. Then what is it? How can she command apex predators with a single word? Ayla smiled, a strange expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. It was the smile of something that knew it stood atop a very long and very bloody evolutionary ladder. Because, she said softly, stroking Ren's head as the cub leaned into her touch, before we taught ourselves to use words, we taught every other predator on Earth what that word meant. We spent 200,000 years being the thing that monsters checked under their beds for. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every species present. We're not prey pretending to be predators. We're predators who learn to pretend to be civilized. The cubs, still sitting obediently at her feet, seemed to understand on some instinctive level what the other species were only beginning to comprehend. Humanity hadn't conquered Earth by being the strongest, or the fastest, or the most venomous. They had conquered it by being the most relentless, the most patient, and the most utterly terrifying thing their world had ever produced. And somewhere deep in the genetic memory of every predator species, that truth resonated like an ancient, primal bell. Ren and Kova would grow up to be apex predators themselves. They would hunt across star systems and fear nothing in the galaxy, except perhaps a human who looked them in the eye and said one word with the weight of 200 millennia of apex dominance behind it: enough.